So here's some news that should absolutely terrify you. The Iowa caucuses were a complete disaster. They were a mess. And it's a great example of either sheer incompetence or complete corruption and shadiness. I think both are probably true, but there's definitely a hefty amount of corruption and shadiness. That cannot be denied. So, given all that, we now have some more news. Look at what happened. This is from the reporter who's been following this very closely. His name is Taniel. I believe he works for the publication The Appeal. And he says, it's done. 22 members of the IDP's, that's Iowa Democratic Party's State Central Committee, just voted to certify the IDP's incorrect results despite a missing precinct plus all the other errors. 13 voted against. That's 22 people telling more than 100 voters it's fine to ignore them entirely. Not only are they missing a precinct, there are also other mistakes that they haven't fixed. And get this, you ready for this? There are new mistakes in the recount. And not only, it's not like, oh, generally speaking, there are mistakes, but we don't know where they are. No, we know exactly where they are. We know exactly what the mistakes are. We know exactly how to fix it, and they're not doing it. And they just voted to, no, certify these. Good enough, good enough, good enough, good enough. Really? There's a famous old joke, I think it was from Chris Rock. He's like, is that how it works at the bank? Oh, you tried to take out $1,000 from the bank. Well, here's about 1,000. If it's like a little extra, maybe $1,020, close enough. Go ahead. They never do that. But for democracy, you get to go, good enough, good enough, good enough. Now, if you're not pissed enough already, the Iowa Democrats said the following. This is somebody who voted on this. Somebody who voted on this and said, yeah, certify them, even though we know there are outstanding mistakes. One of them said, quote, we don't have time to correct every error. Let's be clear. This is election fraud. They're committing election fraud right in front of our faces. Right in front of our faces. That's what this is. They're committing election fraud right in front of our faces. Now, Mayor Pete has already dropped out, but the question in Iowa is it Mayor Pete's or is it Bernie's? That's the question. And methinks if they counted every vote and if they allocated the state delegate elects properly, Bernie Sanders would win, but they just don't want that to happen. So here we go again. I told you guys from the beginning, we have to overwin in order to win. And this is yet another example. The Iowa Democratic Party is committing fraud out in the open. Out in the open. I hope they lose their position as the first state to vote. And I hope that the UN sends in election monitors. And I hope the Iowa Democratic Party is never in charge of counting votes ever again. But I also don't want the DNC to do it. I want some independent party to do it because I don't trust them at all.